Thank you so much, Dr. Ayotide, once again. Your introduction, your introductory presentation, and the voice clips were really wonderful. And for me, it's really encouraging to know that people are knowing more, about what mental health. The first two speakers were amazing, really. The first two who did the interviews were really amazing, what they said. And most people seem to have an idea, of course. Well, maybe there was some selection bias in the people who were picked, but all the same, it's encouraging. So I'm going to be speaking more about mental health. Dr. Ayotide has already started the subject, and I'll just be saying a few more things about it. What is mental health really? I know many of us, when we hear the word mental health, many of us panic. But so I just thought maybe we could break down the words into, break down the two words. And mental just means mind. It comes from a Latin word, mens, which means mind. And health means a wellness, a state of wellness. So mental health is wellness of the mind, basically. It's very simple: wellness, well-being, or wellness of the mind. And we use mind many times in science. We use mind and brain interchangeably. So we can say that the mind is the brain in action. So we're basically also talking about wellness of the brain. And the brain is what controls our thoughts. We all have thoughts, we have feelings, which control the way we behave, the way we relate with other people. And so basically this is what mental health is all about, being able to regulate our thoughts, being able to regulate our feelings, our behaviors, and our relationships. So this is a definition. Dr. Ayotide gave one definition. Luckily, there are many definitions, so the definitions don't clash. But so we talk about a state of emotional well-being, which is characterized by a sense of purpose in life, self-acceptance, which we also call loving oneself, having positive relations with others, and growing, continue to improve in our own personal journey on earth. And I like to think of, well, I got this example from a colleague of mine, and I like to use it many times when I'm talking about mental health. That we can think of mental health in a cup. So this state of wellness, we can think of it in a cup. And if we look at this diagram that I have on the slide, we can see that there are different, those cups are different levels. So there's one that is half full, there's one that is 3/4 full, there's another that is almost full, and there's one that is full and overflowing. And when we talk about mental health, what we want is, we all want that wellness of the mind that is full and overflowing. And so basically that is what we mean when we talk about mental health, that the state of wellness of your mind is so much that it's actually full and overflowing into your actions, your thoughts, your relationships with other people around you. And so, as earlier said, mental health is something positive, it's something good, it's something we all want, it's something we should all want. If we look at the definition, something we all desire. And it's not something static. So it's not I have it or I don't have it. It's something we all have to keep working at, all throughout our lives. That's personal growth, that having a sense of purpose, being able to regulate ourselves. So it's something, it's not that, oh, I have mental health or I don't have it. So at a point in time, I could have very good mental health. And at a point in time, I could go through struggles, through stresses, which, make me not to have such good mental health, but I can recover. I can fill that cup, I can fill that cup until it's full and overflowing. And it's not the same thing as mental illness. Mental illness is a sickness, it's just, well, you have certain symptoms and signs, that affect your ability to regulate your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. And just as was said earlier, that mental health is something that is needed all across the lifespan. So Dr. Ayotide, you took those words right out of my mouth. But well, they say great minds think alike, isn't it? So we talk about infant mental health, infants need mental health, children need mental health, adults need mental health, the elderly, everybody needs mental health to be able to live full, satisfied lives. And well, I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, so I'll always have a bias for talking about children and adolescents. And I know this is going to be a great focus of the initiative. So it's so important for young people, for children, for infants, for children, for adolescents to have good mental health, because basically this forms the foundation for their adult mental health. So what they have, being able to grow and develop in a healthy way helps them to be healthy adults. So we want healthy communities, we want healthy generations. We need to pay attention to the well-being of our children and adolescents. And more science is beginning to tell us that healthy brains are not born, they are built. I know there are a lot of parents listening on this program. So a child having a healthy brain is not just something that happens by chance. It's something that is intentional, you know, that by the things we do, you know, the environment that we create for children, this is what helps them to develop healthy brains. In fact, when children are born, basically all of us are born, you know, with brain cells. You know, I think it's about 100 billion brain cells, but these brain cells are not talking to one another. And so it's the experiences that a child has as they grow older, you know, as they grow up, that helps these brain cells to begin to talk to one another and helps the brain to begin to develop in a healthy way. So really, as parents, I know a lot of parents are here listening, really as parents, we have to think about, we have to be intentional in building healthy brains for our children. Also, I mean, science as a research also shows us now that a lot of children are experiencing mental health challenges. You know, it's said to be about 1 in 5, that's about 20%. And it's also been found that about 50% of mental health challenges start in adolescence, you know, start at about the age of 14. So mental health challenges actually start early on, but there's a lot we can do also early on, you know, to help children to continue to improve their mental well-being. So just talking about the pillars on which mental health rests, you know, many times when we talk about mental health, although I think that's changing a lot now, many times we think about treatment, you know, people who already have mental illnesses or people who need to recover, who need to be rehabilitated. But there's so much more than that. And that's what an initiative like this is doing, you know, promoting. How can we improve our mental well-being? How can we, you know, help promote and prevent, you know, mental disorders in people? So this is just a definition of child and adolescent mental health. And we define it as optimal psychological development, the same cup, you know, being full and overflowing, where a child learns to, grows up learning to love themselves. And so having this positive sense of self, they love who they grow. As they grow up, they love who they are. They're able to discover their talents and their gifts, and they're able to share these talents and gifts with the world. So basically that's it, they're able to manage their thoughts, regulate their thoughts, their emotions, and their relationships. They have opportunities to learn and to acquire an education and to participate and give back to society. And so this is what we want for all young people and all adults. So just briefly, what are the causes of mental health problems? And so in the mental health field, we talk about biological, psychological, and social. And biological just means physical things. So like physical, negative things that have happened to the brain, for example, or to the body. And so like brain injuries, people who have brain infections, even things as simple as what we call birth asphyxia. So where a child is born and doesn't cry immediately, that means there hasn't been enough supply of oxygen to the brain. So even little things like that, you know, can lead to mental health problems, you know, much later. And then psychosocial, basically I think the environmental factors, you know, a loss in the family, loss of job, child abuse, child neglect, bullying in school, you know, sexual abuse, physical abuse, all these kind of things. So it's not one of those things, but a combination. So it's not just the fact that a child has had physical problems or just psychosocial problems, but many times it's a combination of all these things. And that's why in the mental health field, we talk about bio, psycho, social. But there is good news. So there's so many things that can negatively affect our mental health, but there is also good news. And that is what we call resilience, that we all have an inbuilt mechanism to cope with these stresses of life. So all of us experience adversity at different times of our lives, but we all have this, you know, mechanism that helps us to cope, you know, and to recover and to keep going. And many times people can think of resilience as something as is either you have it or you don't. But also research is showing us that that is actually not true. That's resilience is something that can be learned. It's something that can be built, learning how to cope, you know, even things like knowing how to look for help, knowing how to, you know, reach out to others and say, look, I'm not doing well, I need help. That is a form of resilience. It's a form of coping. And so resilience is not just, okay, I have it or I don't. It is something that can be learned, and that's the beauty, and that's the beauty of it. And that's why I like this next slide so much. That life is not about how fast you run or how high you climb, but how well you bounce. So all of us are going to have challenges to our mental well-being. You know, it is part of being alive, it's part of living, you know, but it's not so much, you know, that I don't have stresses or I have a lot of stresses, but how do I get up and keep going? How do I bounce back? And as I said earlier, these are things that can be learned. And so all of us can learn it, and we can get better and be able to cope with life stresses better. Just quickly talking about the role of schools in mental well-being of children and adolescents. Schools are very, very important, you know, for children and adolescents. It's a natural environment for them. After the family, the next place children go to is the school. So we really need to, okay, we really need to provide resources and services for children in schools. So things we really need to do, you know, things that can improve their well-being. And if they are struggling, to be able to quickly identify and to be able to help them to cope better and to be able to recover. And as I said earlier, that the quality of the environment and relationships has a great impact on children's well-being. So it's not just the family environment, but also the school environment, because children spend a lot of time in school. So we really need to think about what kind of environment do schools have for our children? You know, what kind of relationships? That's the first place where they learn to build relationships, you know, with older people, with peers, you know, that's where they learn to, you know, to resolve conflicts, to negotiate. There's so much they learn besides reading and writing in school. And we really need to be looking at the quality of the relationships that our children are having in school. And there's so many potential resources for children's mental well-being in schools. So just to say a little bit about our current reality. During this COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sure a lot of us have heard, you know, that, well, we all know that we're in this pandemic, but that this is also a mental health pandemic, because anything that affects our physical well-being also affects our emotional well-being, because we're one being. Our mind and our body work together. When the body is not well, the mind cannot be well. When the mind is not well, the body cannot be well. So we're in the middle of this pandemic, you know, there's this constant threat. We're all living under this constant threat, you know, to our physical health. So it only makes sense that our emotional well-being should also be at risk. And research that is coming out shows that it's not just people who haven't been infected by the virus, but even survivors, people who have, you know, even they've been infected, they've recovered, but a lot of them are coming down with depression, with anxiety, with post-traumatic stress disorders. So really, it's something we're going to be with for a long time. Even when the physical thing goes, the mental, probably that's when a lot of the mental health effects are going to be seen. So this is something we all have to be ready for. And what are the things that are contributing to this mental health pandemic? The loss of control. We all know that, you know, I mean, one thing that is necessary for well-being is some degree of control over our lives. But a lot of us have lost control, you know. We don't know what is going to happen. Are we going to sit at home for another, you know, people are talking about a second wave, you know, so it's, you know, all that loss of control can really have a lot of negative impacts on our well-being. The lockdowns, you know, having to, you know, can't leave our houses, you know, threatening basic human connection, our freedom to be able to get up and determine what I want to do, where I want to go. All those, you know, impact our mental health. The disruption to our lives, our normal lives, you know, routines have changed, people have lost jobs, schools have been closed in the last 5 months, you know, so all that disruption also negatively impacts our mental well-being. And the lockdown, you know, families locked down, we've heard a lot of increase in incidences of domestic violence, abuse of children. So all these really are weighing on our emotional well-being. But as I said earlier, when we talk about mental well-being, there are always what we call risk factors that increase our vulnerability to mental problems, but they're also protective factors. And so even in the middle of the pandemic, I want us to be positive, you know, that there are good, that we can, if we do look for those positives, we can find them. And I'm going to talk specifically for children. So what are some of the risk factors? Of course, the loss of school routines. We know that children need structure, you know, they need that routine, daily routine. It's very important for their well-being. The loss of support from friends, especially for adolescents. Adolescents are at the stage of development where their interests are outside the home, you know, their social support, their networks are outside the home. So to be stuck at home and not be able to see those networks really is not the best for them. For many children, there's that loss of sense of achievement in school, you know, so children who, you know, in sports, in academics, you know, they go to school, they come back, they're learning, they're achieving, you know, there's all that is also lost. Also, for many children, there's more screen time. So we know some children, not all, are doing online learning, you know, online school. So they're in front of their screens every day, you know, and research shows that too much screen time really is not good, is not the best for young people. There's also less physical activity, so children they're not exercising. Some go from the computer to the television, and unless you are really insistent, many of them will not move their bodies. And exercise has been shown to be so beneficial to health, both physical and mental well-being. Then we have things like personal losses, family losses, and then parental stress. All of parents are stressed. And when parents are stressed, children generally pick cues from parents, and they pick their emotional cues from parents. So when parents are stressed, it only follows that children will also be stressed. And all these increase the risks, increase our children's vulnerability. But looking at some protective factors also, well, families are locked down, so there's more family time. Families are staying together. Their children who don't see, maybe who before this pandemic were seeing their parents maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks, but now everybody's at home together. So that can be a protective factor. Children are also sleeping longer, so they don't have to wake up so early. They don't have to go through traffic to get to school. So there's more opportunities to sleep longer. Some children are playing more, and play, especially for younger children, is so important. It's very important for their development, their social development, their emotional development. So that opportunity to play more can actually be protective for children. There's generally a slower pace of life, for most people, maybe not everybody, but for most people, there's a slower pace of life. There's less stress, that stress of things to get to and jobs to get to, and so many activities, having to do so many activities, and that also can be beneficial. And because there's that slower pace, there's more time for creativity, where children are bored, and that's the time they can also harness their creativity. And also the reduced academic pressure. Before, I know children who would go to school, who would be in school from 8 to maybe 4 or 5, get home at 7, they'd have lessons for 2 hours until 9 p.m. Most likely, those kind of things are not happening anymore. So there's that reduced pressure, and those are things families can actually harness, but also to help to improve the well-being of children and adolescents. So what can we do as parents? I'm aware a lot of parents are on this program. I know many of us have adjusted somewhat. Some of us are coping well. Others may not be coping as well. Some of us have gone through intense phases of, feeling very anxious, very worried, not sleeping, poor eating habits. Lots of us have put on weight, because when we're stressed, we eat more, I mean, there are also people who maybe have not been able to have enough food on their tables, So everybody has, their stories to tell. People going through, feeling stressed out. But I think a lot of us have adjusted. We all talk about the new normal. So a lot of us have kind of, we're okay, this thing has been with us for quite a while. We're kind of learning how to cope with it. And so some could be well adjusted, and others maybe not. Some of us may still be feeling very anxious and stressed, and if we are like that, still feeling very anxious and stressed, then it's a good opportunity for us to reach out, through this platform, through so many different other platforms that are talking and helping people with their mental well-being. And very important for us adults, especially parents, is that we have to take care of our own mental health. I'm sure we've all heard this several times, that we cannot give what we don't have. And so we have to be able to get that sense of calm, that peace in our lives. And if we really don't have it, then we need to reach out. We need to reach out and get help so that we can cope better. We also have to be aware that some children are adjusting well. I know there are children who, even before the pandemic, would preferred online schooling. They would prefer not to be in a physical school. So children like that must be having a wild time now. But there are others, who have had more problems adjusting to this our new normal. So some children may need help, and as parents, we need to be aware, behavioral changes, in our children. Are they isolating themselves more, talking less, more moody, more irritable? Is it, they get angry more easily? They're not sleeping well, or you find them crying for no known reasons. We have to find time to talk to our children, to observe them, to talk to our children, to spend time with them, and to see, if they need help. And to remember that as parents, we're the first support for our children. And so that's also why we need to take care of ourselves, so that we can be good supports for our children. And as we talk about schools reopening, schools also have to be ready to help out, so to pay more attention to mental well-being of children. So I know a lot of schools are probably thinking, how are we going to catch up all the missed things, but we have to think, are these children, how are they coping? Because it's only when they're coping well, when they're in a good place, that they will be able to assimilate all the things we want to teach them. So schools also have to be ready to provide counseling services, to talk about feelings, talk about experiences during the lockdowns, and to teach coping skills, and which we mental health professionals and all the different people working in the mental health sphere will be very, very happy to collaborate with schools to do this. So I think I'll just stop there for now so that we can have questions and answers. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Tolulope Belausa. That was a beautiful time. That was a very good use of our time. You added a lot of value to us and you gave us a lot of catchphrases that we certainly will be taking with us beyond this point. You offered a lot of hope for parents, for caregivers, for children and adolescents. That was actually transgenerational, and we're grateful for that. Thank you so much.